All right, I'm just going to wait one more minute here, make sure everything's open. Okay, let's get started. Welcome, nurses. We're going to start with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Holy Spirit, please be our guide through this hour. We pray for nurses everywhere that you guide them through their work, at home and at play. We know that you have gifted nurses with a special kind of love. That is why they give so deeply and so freely, but also why they are so tired, Lord. We ask that you bless them. I ask especially for nurses who are watching this, may they hear you through me. Amen. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, welcome, nurses. I'm Nicole Haugen. I'm your Catholic nurse coach. I'm a wife, mom, and a nurse. I just going to give you a little background. I have worked in long-term care. Was my first job as a nurse. I was LPN first, and then I did a 1-year RN degree. And then I worked in long-term care for a couple of years. I did night shifts, and then I switched to evenings, and then I did a little bit of days in that as well. And then after a couple of years in that, and after one baby, I switched over to hospice work. And I enjoyed that for about 5 years. And in that time, I think we had 3 more children. We were up to baby number 5. When then I switched over to working at the church as a religious coordinator for a couple of years. And then I went back to nursing in home health and hospice work. And I did that for a couple of years as well. And now I switched over to being a life coach for nurses. So that's a little bit about me, and we're going to get started because I have a lot to cover. I have a lot I want to talk about and tell you guys in this hour. And I want to try to keep it to an hour because I want to be respectful of your time. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, and probably the most important thing that I have learned through life coaching is, hope everybody can see this okay, your thoughts create your feelings. We often think that the circumstance and the people around us and the things that happen are why we feel a certain way. We're taught when we're growing up on the playground, like, oh, they did that and they made me so mad, right? They made me. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is the model, and that is taught by Brooke Castillo in the Life Coach School. And the model is just this. Okay. This is a model. So the C is a circumstance. The circumstance is always neutral. You can prove it in the court of law. It doesn't have any adjectives in it. It has to be facts, and facts that everybody would agree with. So again, provable in a court of law. Then you have your thought, then a feeling, then an action, and then a result. Okay. So this one we're going to go through first is an unintentional model. So your circumstance could be you work 32 hours a week in hospice as an RN. I use this example because that's what I was doing. And so for most of my nursing career, and you can punch in whatever you work in. So work 32 hours a week in hospice as an RN. The thought I had a lot was, I have to work. I have to, right? I have to pay the bills. We have a lot of kids. I have to work. That thought left me feeling resentful. When I felt resentful, I was rude to my husband. I was mad when the day didn't go as planned. I ruminated on how stay-at-home moms have it better, right? They have it easier. I would buy coffee because I deserved it. I would buy clothes that I wanted. I would eat out because, again, I deserved it. I earned it, right? Because I have to work. I did household chores out of a huffy, resentful energy. I resisted the reality of going to work. I always thought kept thinking things will be better if I don't have to go to work. But the reality was I was working and I wasn't organized and I didn't plan out my work week. So then it would just kind of spiral. My result that I created was I was creating extra work for myself. So again, this thought is what drove all of this. Okay. So you can take somebody else and they can be an exact same situation thinking I have to work. So what we're going to do now is when you feel yourself having an unintentional model is the one that comes just so quickly and so suddenly that you don't even really know that you're doing it. You most of the time just feel the feeling, right? You feel resentful all the time. I spent most of my days feeling so resentful and angry. And so what you want to do when you feel that is get really curious because there is a thought driving that feeling. Okay. So why are you choosing to think this? How is your brain trying to keep you safe by thinking this? So I think my brain was trying to tell me like, oh, if you think this enough, you'll be motivated to do things around the house. You'll get your life together. You'll shape up. You'll be a better mom. So my brain was trying to keep me safe by thinking that, okay? Another one, a good one I like to pause when I'm trying to reflect on why I'm feeling that way is once I find the thought, okay, I have to work. How is that thought serving me? Is it serving me at all? No, because I would spend a lot of time angry and resentful. So it wasn't serving me. It wasn't serving my family. I wasn't showing up in a way that God wanted me to show up. Okay. So this one again was just knocked me upside the head when I heard Brooke Castillo explain this. I didn't understand my thought was driving my feeling and my action. So again, we go back to the model. We think our circumstance is what's causing everything for us to feel that way. No, the circumstance is neutral. We have a thought about something. That thought gives us a feeling. And then we take actions from that feeling and we get a result. A feeling, and I'm talking about emotional feelings, I'm not talking about physical feelings, but an emotional feeling is a vibration in your body caused by a thought. Okay, so the example that Brooke used, that again, just was like so eye-opening, holy cow moment, was the example of 9/11 in our country. So on 9/11, as most of you know, I don't know how old you are if you're watching this, but on 9/11, there were airplanes that crashed into the Twin Towers in New York, and those towers proceeded to crash down and people died. Okay, that's the circumstance. We can say that. That's provable in a court of law. That actually happened. There's documented video of it. Now, most of us, if as Americans, thought this is horrible. This shouldn't be happening. Who would do this? Oh, those poor people, right? We felt very sad, devastated. If you personally knew somebody, you were just devastated, right? Now, the reason we know that 9/11 is a neutral circumstance and it can go in the circumstance line is because the terrorists that day had the thoughts it was a success, right? They were happy. They thought it went well. So they had different feelings that day than we did. And that really, when she said it that way, that really hit home to me. And that really, it was like a light bulb went off. I never thought of it that way. I always thought that circumstances cause everything in our lives, right? We just react to everything. But when she said it that way, it's like, oh my gosh, our thoughts about things are what get us the results in our lives, good or bad, intentional or unintentional. So I really want you guys to like reflect on that, sit on that, think on that, and see examples in your life where that is true. Okay, so let's move on. You can choose how you feel. Okay, you can choose how you feel. All day, every day, right? Because feelings are based off of our thoughts. This is so important, okay? This is like the key to it all right here. You can choose how you feel because our feelings are based off of our thoughts. That's it. So now we're going to move into an intentional model. So an intentional model we want to move into after we've gotten really curious about our unintentional model. So when you're first starting out in the beginning, when I first learned life coaching and thought work, I was really quick. I wanted to find my unintentional model and I wanted to move into an intentional model. But as I've grown and learned more about this work, the true beauty is in sitting in the unintentional model and wondering why your brain is telling you this. How is it serving you to think that? Is it serving you to think that? What if things are happening just as they should? Okay, so really sitting in the unintentional model, which was back here. When you think the thought, I have to work, and you feel resentful, why does that keep coming up for you? Okay, why is that a main theme that reoccurs in your life? Okay, and then you switch over to an intentional model. So an intentional model is how we want to show up. Okay, so same circumstance, right? Because it's neutral, prove it in the court of law, work 32 hours a week in hospice as an RN. Okay, so now I might choose to think, I am choosing to do this work. You can start with a feeling if instead it's easier for you to say, I want to feel hopeful going to work. I want to feel empowered when I go to work. Okay, you can start with how you feel and then think of a thought that'll get you that feeling. So with this one, I just thought, I am choosing to do this work. Okay, and that one, I wrote down a couple of feelings, but really it's best to just pick one feeling. Okay, because then you can really get good at what thought you want to pair with it. So I thought that empowered, when I think the thought, I'm choosing to do this work, it leaves me feeling empowered. When I feel empowered, I look forward to going to work more. I plan out my week. I'm more loving towards my husband. I yell at the kids less. I complain less about my job. I have more compassion for the patients, the coworkers, myself, and I try to do my best possible job. Those weeks where I was like excited to be at work, I felt like I was making a difference in people's lives. It maybe wasn't always I'm choosing to do this work, but it was something along the lines of that. I didn't feel like I had to go to work. I wasn't thinking I have to go to work. I was thinking I'm choosing to do this. Or you can even choose to think I'm making a difference for people. Okay. And then your result is you're choosing to do this work, but you're also choosing how you show up. You have the power to choose how you want to show up. So, with that being said, you do have the power to change your job. You can go into work tomorrow and give in your 2 weeks notice. Now, what are you thinking? What comes up for you when you think that about going into work tomorrow and putting in your 2 weeks notice? What feeling comes up for you? Is it fear, anxiety, hopeful, excited, doubt? Okay, any of those things can come up. They're all feelings. And then from that, what came up for you? What triggered that? If it was fear, is it the thought, I can't afford to quit my job? If it's anxiety, is the thought coming up, who would care for my patients? If it's relief, is it because I no longer enjoy my job? Okay, what is coming up for you? Just get really curious. Feel the feeling in your body. Feel where it's at. Describe it. Give it a color. Feel where it moves to. If you need to, go Google. There's tons of descriptive words for feelings out there. There's so many different words that you can look up that might fit better than these few. Okay, so why is it coming up for you? What's coming up? Because if you went and put in your 2 weeks tomorrow, that would just be a circumstance. It'd be provable in a court of law. They would have the paperwork to prove it. But you're going to be having a thought about it that's causing your feelings. So what would come up for you? Okay. Then, once you figure out the feeling, like, why is it coming up? I want to talk a little bit about the 50-50 rule. And again, this is taught by Brooke Castillo at the Life Coach School. And I have mostly found for this to be true. I haven't really found a circumstance or a situation where I would say, no, this doesn't work. So what the 50-50 rule is when we grow up, when we're taught, okay, what's the goal of life? Right? We're always told, what's the goal of life? To be happy, right? You tell your kids, well, I just want you to be happy. You tell yourself, well, you should be happy. And when we don't feel happy all the time, we think that something has gone wrong. So we look for external ways to change that, to make us happy. We switch jobs, we get divorced, we try to control our kids more, whatever the situation may be. So the 50-50 rule is 50% of life, you're going to have bad feelings. And we'll say, for the sake of purposes, bad feelings are anxious, overwhelm, sadness. Those are bad feelings, okay? Feelings in themselves are neutral. They're just a feeling, but we'll say those are the bad feelings. Good feelings, happy, excited, empowered. What are some other ones? Okay. Those are the good feelings. Okay. So 50% of life, you're going to have sad feelings, and 50% of life, you're going to have happy feelings. So we spend our whole lives, or most of our lives, I should say, trying to feel happy because that's what the world tells us we should. However, what happens is when we don't want to feel these bad emotions, we start buffering. Okay. We're over here buffering, right? We scroll on our phones. We think of ways we can get out of our job. We look for new jobs. We look for a new house. We overeat. We overdrink. We watch TV. Okay. We don't want to feel whatever is going on right now. We don't want to feel sad because if the goal of life is to be happy, we're failing, right? So we buffer. So instead of just sitting here and feeling the negative emotion, the sad emotion, we buffer. And what we're doing is we're way out here, and it takes us even farther and longer to get to the happy feeling. Okay. We're just percolating in our own unhappiness. Okay. So the true goal of life is to feel the whole human experience, which includes all of the emotions. If somebody died, you wouldn't want to feel happy. You want that sadness. You want to grieve for them. If you were being chased by a tiger, you'd want to feel scared, so you would run. If you didn't feel scared, you would just sit there and you'd be eaten by a tiger. So the whole human experience, what our goal is, what our goal should be, is to feel all of our emotions as they're happening. But instead, we've fallen into a culture where we don't want to feel sad. We don't want to be upset. If things don't go our way, that's bad. Instead of just allowing those feelings. Right? When we're single, we think, oh, we're going to be so happy when we're married, right? I won't feel lonely then. Everything will be great. And for those of us that are married, we know that that's not true, right? You can feel just as lonely. You have a whole new list of things that you think he should be doing in order to make you happy, right? We know that it's not true. But when you're single, you sit there and think, oh, if I was married, I'd be so much happier. When we have to go to work, we think those stay-at-home moms, gosh, my life would be so much easier. I thought that a lot when I was working full time. My husband was part-time and we were flipping shifts. I would come home, he would go to work, and I would think a lot. If I didn't have to go to work, right? If we could only afford it, I'd be so much happier. Because what do stay-at-home moms do all day? it'd be so easy. And now, when I am mostly a stay-at-home mom, it is not easy. It is very draining. You do not get a break. You don't get much stimulating of the mind. Okay, but we always think that it's better, right? Something else will be better. If only this external thing happened, then I could be happy. But really what I was searching for was a way to control my thoughts in any circumstance that I was in. Okay. I just want to back up a little bit too with our power to change our job. Okay. So we think there's no way I have to work, right? But we decide things all the time. You don't have to work. You don't. You might not be able to afford your mortgage, but what does that look like? It's an option to file bankruptcy. People do it all the time. Right? You could downsize your house. You could sell off a vehicle or two. You could send your kids to private school or public school instead of private school. You could homeschool. You could make a very strict budget on not eating out and how to stick to a budget with meals. Right? We make choices all the time, but we make that choice because we like the feeling that we think we're going to get with money. Right? We're searching for that feeling. Okay. The other thing I would say about that too is like most of us don't actually want to quit our jobs, right? We like the money that we get from nursing. It's a pretty well-paid job. We also like helping people because you could switch. I mean, I did it. I'm now a life coach for nurses. There's never been a better time to work online. You could stay at home and run your own company. You could be a virtual assistant. That job is in need all the time. You could take a weekend and you could learn a couple skills and you could just be a virtual assistant. But why aren't you? That's what I really want you to get curious about. Why aren't you? That is an option. There's a gal, I'm trying to think of her name, Anita Moran, I think. She's in one of my groups. Anyway, she went from being a physician assistant, and now she does online helping people with their websites and stuff online. She does that full-time from home, and she quit being a physician assistant because she decided that she wanted to be home with her kids more. So we can do things all the time. We just don't want the discomfort of change, right? We don't like the powerlessness it gives us. We don't like the feeling of change. Or maybe we do. Maybe we're searching for a change because we think it'll give us a better feeling. Okay, if I switch jobs, then I'll feel better. If I go from the night shift to the day shift, then I'll feel better, right? We're searching for that feeling. We're searching for that happiness. But if we're trying to live the full human experience, it's not being happy all the time. It's feeling all the emotions. Being upset, being sad, being happy, being excited, being lonely, feeling at peace. We want all the human emotions instead of just trying to suppress everything that isn't a happy feeling. All right, so let me talk about the 50 minutes. So again, the goal is not of life is not to make you happy, it's to feel your feelings. Now, I'm going to check questions. Okay. All right. What if I really do need the money? Okay, so we talked a little bit about that, right? I would just get really curious with your brain, right? What is it that you need money for? My guess is that you want money because you like how it makes you feel. I know that there was many times that my husband and I, we're living paycheck to paycheck, right? So living paycheck to paycheck. And that was mainly when I had the thought, like, I have to do this job because if my husband worked, if he was the only one working, he would not make even as much money in 2 months probably as I did as a nurse in 1 month. So that thought just kept running in my mind. I have to. And what I wish that I realized was that I was looking for that external thing to make me feel better. I was relying on my job to bring me money because I didn't like the discomfort of not paying bills. I don't like the discomfort of not having money in the bank. I don't like the discomfort of only having one vehicle. Okay, so I would just get curious as to why it is you think you need money. There are a lot of people that go paycheck to paycheck their whole lives. They live off food stamps. They have WIC. They get all, government programming, and that's fine. So why is that not an option? Okay, so what is your brain telling you that makes you think that this is the safe way to do it? Working, being a nurse, that's what's going to give you safety. Okay, so I just get really curious about that. Okay, what if you work in a toxic work environment and you want out, but you can't afford to leave? So again, we talked about the affording to leave part, right? That's a thought. That may not actually be a true statement. So again, you can switch jobs at any time. You can go be a virtual assistant. They make good money. There's endless amounts of jobs you can pick up. It could fit into whatever you want to make it be very nicely. Okay, your husband can get a second job. If you're single, like I said, there's never a better time to work online than now. So we're going to skip to kind of if you work in a toxic work environment, okay? So with that, I did a video on that a couple weeks ago, I think, but let's kind of break it down, okay? So first off, when you say, what if I work in a toxic work environment? Okay, well, toxic is already an adjective, so that's not a neutral thing, okay? So we can say, let's just say I work in a clinic 40 hours a week. Okay, you work in the clinic 40 hours a week. All right, and then you have the thought, let's see. What's the question again? I work in a toxic work environment. Okay, so your thought would be, probably just, I work in toxic work environment. Okay, so that's your thought. I work in a toxic work environment. Oh, that's your thought, sorry. Thought, your feeling. Feeling, I would say probably trapped. Let's go with trapped. I think that would be. Trapped feeling. Maybe even drained. Trapped, drained. Let's go with drained. But I think the trap feeling would come in more when you think about the money situation, right? So let's go with drained. You feel drained. Okay. I work in a toxic work environment. That thought leaves you feeling drained. From that, you probably complain with coworkers. Dread going to work. What else? Probably complain to your husband when you get home. Probably your friends. I know for me, I always overeat or eat off my plan. I always like to snack on the things in the break room because you don't feel good when you're at work. So you just want to fit in kind of you more, so you overeat. Maybe probably when you get home, you probably like take it on your family, your kids, right? Husband. I'm going to say lash out, yell at your husband, and your kids. And your result is you're creating a toxic environment, right? All by that thought. I work in a toxic work environment. It leaves you feeling drained You complain to your coworkers, you dread going to work, you complain to your husband and your friends, you overeat, you take things out, you lash out and yell at your kids and your husband, and your result is you're creating a toxic work environment. So then again, before you move into an intentional model, I would sit and think, how is that thought serving me? How do I want to show up differently? Okay, maybe I want to feel, I would say this kind of goes back to our first one we did, about feeling choosing to show up, or I'm choosing to do this work, okay? So with the toxic work environment, you could even think, I'm choosing how I show up. Okay, right? Because we can't control other people. They can still do the things, but that's neutral. It's only until you have a thought about what they're doing that then you have a feeling, but then you have an action and you get your result. So if you think, I'm choosing how I show up today, it takes the power away from them and you give it back to yourself. Okay, so that's the beauty of that work. It's so empowering because you realize that you have all the power. You can control yourself. You're never going to be able to control others. You're never going to be able to control your employer, your coworkers, your boss, your husband, your kids. Okay. You can only control yourself. All right. So let's see what's next. How do I balance emotional guilt of working, being away from kids, or the guilt of letting colleagues be short and patients suffer? So how to balance the emotional guilt of working and being away from the kids. Okay, so you have the guilt of working. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna just put working in because working as a nurse, okay? You're having a thought that's making you feel guilty. Guilty. Okay. So oftentimes when I would feel guilty from being away from my kids, it was because deep down, a lot of times it was, I'm missing out on things, but that would make me feel more sad. I would say the main underlying thought is good moms stay home with their kids. Okay. I'm a bad mom. So I'm going to put in, I'm a bad mom. That was probably the main underlying thought that I had a lot. I'm a bad mom. Okay. So then I feel guilty. And then my actions are when I'm at work, I think about the kids. My husband and I would always flip-flop. So we never had childcare, but I would try to definitely micromanage when he was with the kids. I would send him texts all day long about things to do, follow up with this. Oh, don't forget this. So I would say micromanage. And I'm just going to put husband, but if you have childcare, it might be the same thing for you that you do. Or if you don't feel like you can micromanage your daycare or childcare, you probably still take it out on your husband because I know poor husbands, right? They get the blunt of everything. So I would think about the kids while I was at work. I would micromanage my husband. I would, a lot of times when I had downtime, so we would drive from, client to client, I would just spin and overwhelm. So I would say, been an overwhelm, I would think about all the things I needed to do. The things I wasn't doing was I wasn't planning. Like I would sit there and think about all the things to do, but I wouldn't actually like write them down or take steps to like get them out of my brain. So I wouldn't plan. Again, I would stop and go get a coffee because I was feeling guilty, right? So I'm just going to put overeat. As I would eat, again, all the sweets in the break room, all the things. Okay, what else? Oh, when I would get home, I would usually lash out at my husband and kids again. I would often ruminate on the things that didn't get done during the day. I would never look at the things that got done. I would only look at the things that didn't get done. Okay. So from the thought, I'm a bad mom, I feel guilty. That's driving all these actions. And my result is I'm showing up like a bad mom. Okay, our thought always drives our result. So now, to switch again, think about that, sit with that, think, why am I feeling that way? Just get really curious. A lot of times if I just sit there and ask a question, why, a lot of things will keep coming up, keep coming up, keep coming up. I think for me, we kind of got to the root right away. Like the main thing is I always would come back to is because I thought I'm a bad mom. Okay, so once you feel like you've gotten down to the root of what's actually driving all this, then let's move into the intentional model. Okay, so again, if you're working as a nurse, okay, we're working as a nurse. How do you want to show up with your kids? Okay, if you decide like this isn't what I don't want to change my job, I really do like nursing, I like this career, how can you choose then to show up? So again, maybe even if you need to think of the feeling you want to feel, like I know for me, a lot of times I wanted to just feel present, because oftentimes the guilty feeling also came from when I was not at work and I was with my kids, I was still thinking about work. And then when I was at work, I was thinking about my kids. So when I'm with my kids, a good one that I like to feel, I'll go with that one, is I like to feel present. Okay. So why do I feel present with my kids? I feel present with my kids. I'm focused on them. I put everything else to the side. I minimize distractions. And I'm probably thinking the thought, I mean, it might even be as simple as I'm a good mom. When I think I'm a good mom, it doesn't make me want to distract myself with other things because I feel guilty. And I think, or even, I mean, if that's too much of a stretch for you too, because I know like a lot of times, especially in the beginning, it was, hard for me to think that about myself. So even we can do a bridge thought. So if I'm a good mom is too much of a stretch for you, you can think, I'm learning to be a good mom. We can think, I'm learning how to be present with my kids. Okay, so let's do that one. Okay, I'm learning to be present with my kids. When I think that, I feel very peaceful. I feel calm. I feel, I'm not sure what the word is, but lack of pressure. Okay, so we can keep present up there, but I feel like now that we switched our thought, I'm learning how to be present with my kids. Present, I'm going to say calm. When I'm learning how to do things, I feel curious about my brain and curious on ways that I am learning how to be present. So curious, peaceful, right? The pressure's off. So I feel very peaceful. Okay, so I'm trying to pick which one feels. So again, you want to sit with it kind of and feel which one is the strongest feeling in your body. So when I think I'm learning how to be present with my kids, I'm going to say calm because it's not quite peace, but it just feels very freeing. Maybe I'm just going to put that. I feel very free. So I'm learning how to be present with my kids. I feel free. And then from that action, right, I'm calmer. I don't yell as much. I'm much nicer to myself in my head. When things go off plan, or the kids do something, I tell myself it's okay. So I'm much more forgiving of myself and the kids and my husband. Right? I eat on plan because I'm nicer to myself. I feel free and calm. Okay. I don't sit there and think about work while I'm with them then, because I'm learning how to be present with my kids. Okay, and your result is you're not only learning how to be present with your kids, you're actually being present with your kids. Okay, so isn't it amazing how our thought gives us the exact thing that we are trying to avoid, right? When you think I'm a bad mom, that's what you're trying to avoid, right? But you end up being a bad mom. And when you think, I hope you guys can see this. When you think I'm learning how to be present with my kids, even though you're in that learning phase and you're giving yourself the freedom to just be, you're being present with your kids. Like, it's just mind-blowing to me. So Okay, I think we have time. Got about 10 minutes. So one more. Oh, that's just, okay, let's finish that second part of that question. So how do you balance the guilt of working, being away from the kids, okay, or the guilt of letting colleagues be short-staffed and patients suffer? Okay. So for this one, I think I'm just going to put for your circumstances that you have the day off, because I'm assuming that's what you mean. So we're just going to put, so the more specific you can be, the better. Okay. So we're just going to put, so just putting day off, which, okay, fine. But let's put day off from working in the clinic, okay, or the hospital. So you have the day off and you feel guilty because they're short-staffed. Now, I'm not sure if you actually know that they're short-staffed or if you're just assuming based off of, you know, current events and past days and months and years. So short-staffed, I think, also could be a descriptive term, because unless you say, okay, according to the legal, I don't even know what it is, if it's like 10 patients per nurse. I think it varies, of course, where you're at in which facility. So unless you look up your specific policy for your workplace and then say, okay, yeah, we're supposed to have 5 nurses on working today and we only have 3. Okay. Then I think technically you could say that you're short-staffed, but I wouldn't even put the word short-staffed. I would just say legally, we need 4 nurses or 5 nurses. We only have 3 to work. Okay. So really clear it up in your mind, specifically what is the fact. Okay. Short-staffed can be a very broad term, right? Like there's a lot of places now that are short-staffed, right? Like drives me crazy. But anyway, I digress. So I wouldn't put short-staffed in there because that can be, that's not, people can interpret how they want. I would put specific in there. Okay. But circumstance we're going to go with right now is you have the day off from working in the clinic or the hospital. Okay. Wherever you work. So day off from working and your feeling is guilt. And your thought is they are short-staffed. Okay. Or even your thought might be patients will suffer because I think that was the second part. Yeah, and patients suffer. So let's even go with the thought. Okay. Patients are suffering. You feel guilty, right? Because you keep thinking patients are suffering. I'm not working. I'm short-staffed, but patients are suffering. Your action at home is you might be checking into your work computer. You know, if you have a thing that comes home, you might be checking labs. Checking emails. I was always not good at shutting off like my work phone, or when they combined phones, like I would respond all the time, even when I wasn't working. Like I would respond to text messages and emails. I would even say like ruminating on work, like you sit there and you just think about it all day long. So ruminating. And then I wasn't being present with my kids. Again, I'd usually end up snapping at my husband. I would do a lot of frantic, like hopping from the laundry to the dishes to now, oh, I gotta plan meals for the week. And I would do a lot of I don't know if you want to call it hopping. Let's see. I would say frantic, busy work. At home. Okay, frantic, busy work at home. What else? Those were the big ones. I would sit there and think about work all day long. I'd come with a frantic energy. I would take it out of my husband and kids. Again, overeat. I'm a big overeater. Maybe overdrink. Yeah, hopping from thing to thing. I don't know. My family call it putzing. We're big putzers. We do a lot of things, but never accomplish anything. So your result is you're suffering, right? You're suffering in your mind all day long as you spin about work and you feel guilt. You just spin, right? I mean, even with the thought they're short-staffed, I would say you're shorting yourself on your day and your day off. Because again, we can't control the circumstance. That's going to happen no matter what. Those patients that are there for the day, they're getting better care than they would at home. Like we know that. There's a lot of people that are in circumstances and situations that are not great. Right? People let things go a lot longer than they should. And again, all those are thoughts that I have about it. But you guys know, right? So they're still getting better care than they would have than if they were at home. Okay. And at the end of the day, it's the same with the airplane thing, right? We can't help others if we're empty, if our tank is empty, right? When you're flying an airplane, they tell you to put on your mask first, even before your kids, before your spouse, before anybody, because you can't help anybody if you're tapped out. And that's what's happening to nurses is we are tapped out and we are drained because we sit here and we spin all day long. We feel guilty about not being at home, and then we feel guilty about not being at work. But we have the power to control that. We can change everything in our minds. Okay, we're almost out of time. So, and I think there was one more, but we're okay. I'll have to do a separate webinar and a separate workshop. I want to do one about our brain and how it tries to keep us safe and why your brain is telling you these things, and another one about overeating, because that was a big one for me too. And I see a lot of nurses now, especially since the pandemic, right? Like we're just trying to stuff down our feelings. We're trying to overeat because nobody wants to feel how we've been feeling. So again, with this, sit with that. Why are you feeling that? Okay. And then to switch to an intentional thought. How do you want to show up on your days off? Okay. Or better yet, how do you want to show up when you're at work? Because the last one, I think we flipped it when we feel guilty, we're not with the kids, we flipped it and said how we are still showing up from that place when we're with the kids. So with this, I would just say, how do you want to show up when you do go to work? I'm choosing to work as a nurse. I enjoy working as a nurse. When you start thinking those thoughts of, oh, I hate this job, this sucks, this workplace is toxic, you're like, wait a minute. And I read a book called Atomic, no, it wasn't that one. I read a book. I think it was Atomic Habits. No, I don't think it's that one. Anyway, it was basically how the science behind even saying your own name snaps you out of it and helps you look at it as a third person. So if I just said, Nicole, how is that thought serving you right now? And even if you don't change the thought and you just sit in that, that alone is life-changing. Okay, so it's been an hour. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I do just want to say thank you for watching and coming. And again, I want to do more videos and workshops for nurses, because you guys were doing important work and we get burnt out and we're tired, right? So you can go to catholicnursecoach.com is my website. If you want to do some one-on-one coaching, I have a free discovery call. I really encourage you guys. One-on-one coaching jumps you from this level to up here. It's same with like a personal trainer, but for your mind, right? You can lose weight on your own. You can learn how to use the weights, but what a personal trainer does is they really teach you and they show you and they guide you, and they're able to see things about your mind that you aren't able to see because you're in it. I have a life coach that I talk to. It's just very beneficial and it's amazing, and it has completely changed my world. So again, just free discovery call if you're interested in doing one-on-one coaching with me. I do sign up people for 12 weeks at a time, and you meet once a week for those 12 weeks. And it's all via Zoom. And then I'm on Facebook. I'm on Catholic Nurse Coach, and then there's a private group, Catholic Nurses. If you want to sign up to join that, just ask and I'll let you in. And Instagram, Catholic Nurse Coach 2022. And I have a podcast, Catholic Nurse Coach. And I also have a YouTube channel. I do short videos for you guys to just kind of do quick models. So if you ever have anything that you want modeled out, or like, hey, this is happening, if you just want me to do a quick video on it, I can also do that as well. So thank you for coming, and I'm praying for you all, and let's go change our world.